And this is Frontosa cichlids and more. In this video we're looking at understanding your substrate for your Frontosa cichlids. You'll be surprised at all the aspects of the substrate in your aquarium. So stay tuned for this very interesting video. The first aspect of your substrate that it can do for your aquarium is that it can do biological filtration. Biological filtration is the most important filtration you can have for your aquarium because your aquarium can look crystal clear and all your fish may be about to die. And this is because your mechanical filtration is great, but your biological filtration is not. So you could also have an aquarium that looks really dirty in the water, but the biological filtration is doing so good of a job that the parameters in your aquarium is doing a great job of keeping your water healthy. Now the substrate allows your bacteria to grow on the substrate. The substrate that you use in your aquarium, you can also use in filtration methods in your filters. Like in this instance, I have sand, mostly sand in the aquarium. Sand can be used in different types of filters and does a great job of growing beneficial bacteria, which break down the ammonia to the nitrite to the nitrate, and it keeps your water very healthy. Also, I've got some crushed coral in here, and it also does a good job of keeping the bacteria growing there. So in case you clean out your filter and do not do it properly, the substrate will keep enough beneficial bacteria to keep your water healthy after you clean your filter. And sometimes you clean so much of that bacteria out of your filter, it can be dangerous for your aquarium. So this is a backup method for your aquarium filtration, the biological filtration. Now the substrate is very important for Frontosas because they do like to sift, move the sand around when they're breeding, and also the ease of picking up the eggs is very important. You can have a mix of some crushed coral and sand. You can have all crushed coral, but having some sand in it makes it better from the sift, as well as pick up the eggs when they're doing their breeding spawning maneuvers in the aquarium. So having sand is very important to have your Frontosas breed in an easy manner and also have more survivability of the eggs in the fry. Now there's an instance where some people may have not really thought about the substrate, and that's the depth of your substrate. Sometimes that's very important because if it's too deep and they're not doing a lot of moving of your substrate, it can build up a waste in your aquarium. So the depth of your substrate is very important. Sometimes you can have too little where if they move the substrate, it's a bare glass, doesn't look as attractive. So the depth of your substrate is very important, and it's something you should consider before buying or adding substrate to your aquarium. Now when you do water changes, you can move around the substrate to help with the dead spots in the aquarium where it builds up waste in the sand or the crushed coral or so forth. But if you have the right amount, it gets moved around by the fish and you don't have to do that as much. You still want to do that when you do water changes, but the depth of the substrate is very important for your health of your aquarium because it keeps the buildup and the waste in your sand to a minimum. Now another instance where the sand is very important or your substrate is very important for your filtration. A lot of times your flow is coming this way across your aquarium, or it could be coming forward in your aquarium, but there's turbulence. And what the sand allows you to do, or crushed coral, or whatever you want to do, the best way is to have sand is that the waste from the fish is moved by the flow of the filter and sucked back up into the filter. If you have too much ornaments in your substrate, that can be where there's spots where they build up, and they can be piles of waste that builds up in your aquarium. So the flow in your aquarium is very important when you're setting up your aquarium, to get the waste moving throughout the aquarium, off the sand, back into the filtration system. Keeping it in the filtration system allows more beneficial bacteria to get to it and do a better job of breaking it down in the waste than if it's buried in the sand or the other types of substrates you may have. Now, another thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration, sometimes you have your heat on or your air conditioner on, which the heat, sometimes there's evaporation that allows your water level to go down pretty fast. And sometimes it doesn't really, you think, hey, it's not really bothering my fish to have it down just a little bit, but it can affect the flow of the water in your aquarium, the cycling of the water over your substrate to get the waste back into your filter. And if you have a lower level in your aquarium, it can actually affect your filtration. Because the flow is not going over the substrate and bringing it back into the filter. It's basically going down in one spot, not doing good with your filtration. So keeping your water level up, whether you're using air conditioning or heat or in a hot environment, allows your filtration to do so much better, because it removes the waste from the substrate. Because of the flow of the water throughout the aquarium, it will allow the waste to be blown up and sucked into your aquarium and your aquarium filtration system, where if it's just coming down in one spot, the outflow from your filter is not doing a good job of cycling the whole aquarium, where the waste is getting back into the filtration system. Now, water changes allows you to keep a good pH, okay, pretty good pH, stable pH. But the crushed coral is a good method to keep the pH doing good. It slowly dissolves in the aquarium water and keeps the pH well. What I've understood recently, I tried out a different type of substrate that I think is really good and interesting, and that's actually a crushed coral sand. And that takes care of all your issues. It gives you good beneficial bacteria. Also allows the sifting of the sand for when the frontosas are breeding. Keeps your pH very well and balanced. And it keeps the flow of the waste off the sand going into your filtration system much better than, say, crushed coral or crushed argonite. So it's actually coral sand and does a good job. Same brand as that I've used for the crushed coral, but it does so much better. So check that out if you're thinking about putting some new substrate in your aquarium, or hey, you're setting up a new frontosa aquarium. Now, pH, I just got through talking about pH for your substrate, how the substrate allows you to have a good pH, stable pH, as well as with water changes. What you need to realize that the waste buildup lowers your pH. So having like a sand substrate or a coral sand substrate allows the waste not to build up as much in the aquarium. It gets sucked up into the aquarium. A filtration system is broken down a lot quicker. If you have too much that builds up without receiving oxygen, it definitely can lower your pH quicker than if it was sucked into your filtration system. This has to do also with the depth of your substrate, as well as the type of substrate you use for your frontosas. Now, I mentioned this earlier. Make sure you do not change out your substrate at the same time as you're cleaning your filter. This could cause a big time biological cycle to happen into your aquarium. The ammonia could spike, your fish could die. Make sure you do not do this at the same time. Sometimes that's not done very often, but once a year sometimes people take out the substrate, change it, as well as the filtration method. Just make sure you do not do these at the same time. Leave a couple of weeks, hopefully 3 weeks in involved in this before you do this. So if you are going to change out your substrate to a different type, make sure you hold off on changing and cleaning your filtration method until your new substrate builds up good beneficial bacteria. I think you'll be very happy with the results by doing that, because the effects of not doing that can cause a major fish loss. So I've talked to you about the benefits of the substrate and different methods of what you can do to keep your aquarium water healthy, which has a lot to do with your substrate. I'm going to take a moment to show you my setup of my aquarium. Changing the setup of your aquarium is also very important when it has to do with substrate, because any parts in your aquarium where there's ornaments or rocks, they can build up some waste that you don't normally see. So it's good to at least do that every once in a while, to change it around so the dead spots are stirred up and the waste is removed. So let's take a look at these amazing frontosas and the new setup that I have now. Basically what I've gone with is kind of a two focal point area in the Frontosa aquarium. This is a 125 gallon aquarium. Here on the left you see some caves. A lot of the Frontosas are hanging out there, kind of in a schooling method. And then if you see in the center of the aquarium, which allows plenty of swimming room for the big Frontosas. There you see my largest alpha male in the aquarium. Also, if they're wanting to breed, there's plenty of room for them to do their spawning maneuvers. And then here there's another focal point where there's more caves and they're hanging out here. Now this is totally different from what the methods I've used before. Normally I like to have my fish in the center of the aquarium, but I'm trying this out and I like it very well. It kind of divides the number of fish in half and allows the freedom of plenty of room in the center for them to cruise around and eat. This is where I feed them. I feed them in the center. That way when the food comes down, it's not trapped in the ornaments, the rocks. So they can go through and sift after eating the food. They can sift through the sand and get any loose particles. It does very well. The Frontosas has been doing great in this new setup. It's unusual to see them adapt to the new changes. So when you're moving around your ornaments in your aquarium, it will change your behavior of your fish. Here we have two schools here, one on the right. And we'll slowly go over here to the left. Plenty of room in the center to cruise around and swim back and forth. And then you have a schooling point on the left. Just remember, your substrate's very important. One of the most important things that's in your aquarium. It affects the behaviors of your fish, the filtration method, how it looks, so many aspects that people just don't take into consideration. How the flow over the substrate affects filtration, the depth of your filtration, of your sand, your substrate, how that affects filtration, how it affects breeding. It affects so many things, waste removal. So remember, substrate is very important for your Frontosa aquarium. Hopefully this will give you some ideas what you're using now or in the future. Thanks again for watching Frontosa, cichlids, and more.